welcome to the 11th day of the path of purification. Before we start the session, let's just step back for a few moments of silence. So warm greetings to you all. Very happy this evening to welcome Aditi Kaul. We work a lot with her at NAMAH, and she's always provides very inspiring presentations. She's a seeker working towards bringing the perennial wisdom of self-knowledge in the field of psychology and developing ways that can facilitate an integral approach towards life. Conscious living is a full-time job. It's her living aspiration. Currently, she teaches integral yoga psychology at university level and also conducts online sessions focused on dialogue-based inquiry and self-exploration. So the topic of her presentation tonight is purification of the instruments. So I'm sure it'll be very, very relevant to this overall theme and very enlightening. So over to you, Aditi, and enjoy the session.
Namaste, everyone. Thank you, James. Every time, James, you give my introduction, I have some or the other new thought. And today, since we will be talking about purification, and all of you have been on the journey of purification forever, but with this group for last 10, 11 days, when you were giving my introduction, I was reminded of all the impurities were coming up on the surface that, no, like you said, maybe teaching at the university, I was like, no, but this is not true, it is incomplete. So I was just wondering how our mind works and how immediately we focus on the opposite of what we are supposed to speak. And that is a very interesting point to begin our exploration. And it would be good for you to reflect that since you have been engaging with purification as a journey for last few days, how much have you witnessed your own impurities in this journey? Like every time somebody speaks about that, how purification is very important on this path, and if you're walking towards the divine, you have to be pure, your instrument has to be pure, the why of purification, the how of purification, the what of purification. And when everybody is speaking, back of your head, there's a narrative going on. There are so many impurities. So on the outside, you're talking about purification, but what is happening inside of you is you are trying to map your own impurities and how can you purify them. So that is like a very interesting human phenomena. I'm not sure about animals if they go through it, but as a human, I can share that experience that it's very human to have those contradictions on a regular, on a day-to-day basis. Like those are the contradictions which in a way define the narrative which we give for our life. That who we are, it becomes a combination of all these narratives And usually because of the mere nature of our surface, which essentially is very pure, because we all have that urge to progress. So that urge to progress becomes our lens to live a more deeper life, to live a more meaningful life. But that urge to progress, when captured by our surface, it converts into a sense of urgency to reach somewhere. And in that urgency, all we see is what needs to be right. So though we mentally understand when we talk and we come to these groups that it's important to focus on what is good, it is important to surrender, it is important to be connected to the divine, but the natural go-to becomes what is missing, what is lacking. So the underlying principle is at place, which is that I want to correct myself, I want to become better. But in that process of correcting, in that process of becoming better, like how mother says, no, are you focusing on rejecting the fault, or are you focusing on building the quality? What are you focusing on? And very often she has said again and again in that sense that always focus on what you want to become, not what you don't want to become. But again, that's a very human tendency of focusing on what we don't want to become, because that's how we are. So how do we bring more and more our focus on what we have and how can we work with it? And one very important thing in any process. So when we are talking about purification, we're essentially talking about the process of purification. And why is the process of purification very important? Because we have to cater to that urge to progress, to grow more deeper and closer to the divine. So that is the broader framework through which we operate. Now, in this framework, there is a sense of that, yes, I have a role to play. So there's a I in that, which is a surface I, which brings in the element of effort. And there's also some sense of deeper surety that I'm taken care by the divine, or I'm offering to the mother, I'm connected to the mother. So there are two movements that on the surface, we make that effort where the sense of, oh, what is wrong? What can be corrected? Why do I have this impurity? Or is it only me? Or all those narratives that go around. So that is one story that is happening. And another story is a deep assurance which all of us have that, yes, I'm being carried by the mother, but we often don't contemplate more on that. So first and the foremost idea is that how do I shift that focus to more and more that every time I'm faced with something, how do I bring my notion that, yes, I'm being carried? So when I have that notion, then difficulty is just a tool for the divine to work through us. So then we are not so afraid of what is happening or what is wrong, but we are more like, okay, this is the instrument which the divine is using to work on me because I'm offering myself. So we always also know that divine works through our instrument. So there's no miracle. It's like what we offer, he works through us with that. So now I'm like, yes, I want to purify myself. But the moment I see one impurity, I'm like, no, I go back. So there's a constant pull and push. And why does this constant pull and push happens? Because we carry that false notion of perfection, again, which is always a sense of, which is a borrowed notion. Because inherently we know that perfection in itself is a process, it is not a final product. But because we attach our sense of perfection to the image which we hold of ourselves, we feel that imperfection is something to be quietly worked upon, and the outside has to be projected, which is very perfect, which is very pure. So that disturbance is caused in our inner being, that inside there's some sense of work in progress going on, there's some sort of shifting happening, but I don't know the vocabulary, I don't know the space, I don't know the ways. How can I express that in the world? Because what I have learned from the world is to express perfection. So this imbalance in what I'm feeling inside and how I'm supposed to be outside is more the cause of our focus on so much of impurities. And this is essentially the window through which we can connect our inner and outer. Like even when we focus so much on, like we're talking about impurities, like if I ask you, for example, for a moment, if you focus on what is the bag of impurities you carry, and have you even wondered that what is in the bag of impurities for you? Even the impurities are borrowed, or are they your own? Because we also have that notion that, oh, being angry, not allowed. Fear, not allowed. Talking to people rudely, not allowed. So there are certain conditions which we have of a, say, a morally perfect person or an ethically perfect person, or how an ideal man in the society should be. And something, the moment something doesn't align with it in your experience, it's like impurity. So the first and foremost thing when we start walking the path of yoga, walking the path of self-exploration is to even see and acknowledge that what all is in my bag of impurities. Because at one level, we understand that, oh, we are walking the path of integral yoga. Impurities are a part of evolution. So evolutionary, man is a transitional being. So we carry the impurities of the past. So all that surface impurities which I see are a part of my nature. So I have it. I can't do anything about it. So that is one narrative. So, but when I acknowledge this narrative, my second question, or the logical question to ask myself is that, okay, these are impurities which I have in my nature. But how on a day-to-day basis, I am adding to these impurities because I'm operating in ignorance in the world. So I was given these things, fine, I have it in my nature. But am I in my everyday interaction with the world adding to those impurities, asserting them more and more? Or I am actively, consciously working to just observe and see them, okay, they're my part of my nature. And I can work upon them. And I can work upon them in alignment with my journey. Because I have to take all my parts together. It's not that I complete one part, then I complete another part, then I go to the third part. It doesn't work like that. All our parts of the being work simultaneously. So even if we look at the element of time, for example, in the purification aspect, we understand that the impurities of the past can be worked upon in the present for preparation for the future. So that is the time continuity which we can see from the lens of purification. Because even if we talk about specifically integral yoga, we realize that it is a yoga of the future. So we are all essentially preparing our Aadhaar, preparing our base for the divine to work through us. So that is the base which we need to get ready. But for this base to be ready, we also have to question all those things which are coming in the way. So the impurities, say at the thought level, the impurities at the vital level, the impurities at the physical level, and how they work together. So what is the interconnectedness of our instruments? Because we understand that when we call ourselves instruments, we understand that the surface is the instrument, that is the material which is given to us through which we are working. And there is that divinity within us which can use this instrument. So essentially, we are the instruments of the spirit. And that spirit in itself is pure. So we are not saying that the impurities are on the outside. So within us, there lies the bag of purity. So it's not that we have to look for somewhere else, that, oh, I have to go somewhere out to find out purity. That pure sense of the divinity is concealed within all of us. It's not you and me, it's everybody. So that divinity is inside, the impurity of nature is outside, and there is no connection between the two. And that is why there is imbalance in the world. So the more we become conscious of our everyday actions, and whatever, like every time I keep focusing on this point, that first and fundamental thing is to recognize that where do I begin? Like, even if I'm beginning in alignment to my own nature, or I'm beginning because I think that everybody begins like this, so I should also begin like this. So if I am more of a mental person, maybe purifying thoughts comes more naturally to me. And with the help of purified thoughts, I can purify my vital. But if I'm somebody who's more open to vital, who's more aligned or more open to beauty, who's more open to creativity, who's more open to, say, designing, music, visiting different places, just exploring from the heart, then I use that entry point and start seeing that, okay, in this space, what are the things which I can change, which take me more closer to the purity inside of me? And then I begin there. Because if I am a mental person and I start working so much with, say, I want to purify, I want to listen to good music, I don't even have sense of music. So you play good music, bad music, I will not know. So that will not work for me as a purification. But if I start filtering the kind of data I'm taking in, the kind of books I'm reading, the books which are like disturbing my vital, if I'm reading such kind of literature, or I'm kind of reading literature which is taking me closer to the divine. So what am I doing to begin that process for myself? And how then one part of your being can help the other part to lift up, to purify. So the outer disharmony is because every part of the being wants to assert itself. And why does every part of the being wants to assert itself? Because they are not connected to the deeper within themselves. So they're seeking independent identity. But once they get a notion or the sense of that purity within, and they understand that, oh, mind is also deriving energy from that sense of purity within. Oh, vital, so our source is the same. So once our outer instruments get that sense that our source is the same, they begin to work in harmony, because they know that end of the day, we are going back to the same home. But if that is not the case, they're seeking independent identity assertion on the outside, they are always divided. So one indicator for purity, which is again a very common indicator for all of us, is something which is making our consciousness narrow, that is which is gravitating towards impurity. Something which is helping us widen our consciousness is taking us towards purity. So that is a very basic, tangible indicator to help us. And in this process of mapping that which direction am I going, what is very, very fundamental to our exploration is transparency with our own self. Because often, like in the beginning, I spoke about that image thing, right? That there's a notion of perfection, there's a notion of the image which we hold of ourselves. So often, the image influences not even our interaction with the world, but also the interaction we have with our own selves. So there are things in all of us, if we like pause for a second and reflect, that we don't even feel comfortable admitting to ourselves that there are certain thoughts I have, or there are certain feelings, or there's certain thing. I was like, no, this is not. So you don't want to attach yourself to that thing. But if you can be very, very transparent to yourself and recognize that it's okay to have any feeling, because you understand through your mind, you have purified your mind enough that thoughts come from outside. Everything is a part of a collective nature. So it's not that you are generating a specific thought. If you're feeling angry, anger is a common emotion. You might catch anger from the world, and you might be requiring at that point of time to look into and say, oh, this is what needs to be worked upon in me. So anger is coming from the outside to tell you that this is an impurity which needs to be worked upon. And at that point, how connected you are makes a part that how do you react to that situation. So in the end, you can't just sit and, oh, I am the person who has so much of anger, or I am the person who has so much of fear. Because there's a joy in that self-criticism, because it gives us a sense of purpose. It gives us a sense of existence, that it's like, I have so much of work to submit the next day. So I'm just sitting in front of the work and I'm like, oh, there's so much work to do. Because one, it makes me feel important. At the same time, it also makes me feel that, it gives me a purpose. So it's like, yes, I have something to do till tomorrow. So often people talk about wanting to be free, but once you leave them free, they will not know what to do, because we don't know how it is to be free from our mechanical habits or free from our own notions, because we have not experienced that kind of freedom, what it is to just be in that expansive state, because we are so tied to how things should be. So a lot of impurities that we experience are a reason that we are not being completely true to even our own self. Because the moment we start being very, very transparent with our own self, we recognize that the objectivity in our perception increases. And the moment the objectivity in our perception increases, we see that what needs to be done. So then we are not so much entangled into, oh, I need to do this, or this is wrong, or this is right, or this needs to be corrected. Then we just, what we call play of nature, we actually see play of nature. So that idea comes into action through an objective viewing of what is happening in the world. And when you develop that objective view of what is happening in the world, you realize that like how the stream of purity just flows at the collective level. And if you're connected within, you get that like there's a tiny stream that comes and goes to your inner being, and there's a continuous collective stream of purity flowing in the world. So there is a lot of goodness, there is a lot of goodwill in the world. But if you are then on the surface, you connect to the stream of impurity, because the river of impurity is also flowing. So at every level, you make a conscious choice to which stream do you want to be connected, and that determines your experience. And in that experience, a lot comes out, because we keep saying that we need to purify, we need to purify. But how does even one purify? Are we willing to give ourselves the time and space to work on ourselves? Because mentally, the idea that yes, self-work is important and to grow within is important is nice. It helps us to start on the path. But how much are we really free from the notion of it's okay, say, to be, to not to do anything? How much are we not having that, what we call that fear of missing out? How much am I willing to invest in myself to see my journey unfold? Because for me, sitting here, and it's easy to say that, oh, I have so much of impurities, I need a lot of work. And then I discuss with a friend, see, this is wrong, yeah, we need to work. Yeah. And then I can go back to my normal life, living unconsciously on the surface, with the assurance that, yes, I know this is wrong. But if I want to purify it, if I want to really work on it, which means that if I'm looking at one impurity, the moment I start working on it, I will find 10 more impurities hidden behind that impurity, because that was just a surface. So how ready I am. And that sense of readiness, how deeply it is connected to my surrender to the absolute. Or basically it boils down to what is my intention. Like on the outside, it might not look so different, but I know from my inner discernment that why do I want to purify? And is my need for purification, or is my sense of purification going more towards that sense of, oh, on the surface, I need to be a good person, or to that inner being which wants to open up no matter what? So on the surface, I might look not so good person, but I know that that not so good person is a phase as a part of my purification journey. So how, like if I tell you very, very practically, how ready I am to be, say, rejected by the world to accept my own self. Am I ready for that? Am I ready for that passing phase? Because nothing is absolute, nothing is set in stone. We are all moving from one step to another. But am I ready for that? So talking about purification, am I ready to see those impurities from that objective lens, and then see what is my entry point? Like how I was talking, is mind my entry point, is vital my entry point, and how do I enter? And when I enter, how do I deal with them? Like, is there that notion? Because a lot of our notions are coming from that past narrative which we have, no? And that basic idea of judging ourselves, cribbing, self-criticism, not good enough, all these things run parallelly. So there's that deep need for purification, but there's also a lot of fear, no? You don't know what comes up. And the moment we feel that the environment is not conducive, we immediately recoil, we immediately go within. And that is when the basic principle, say, of preservation gets activated. So I want to purify, I understand that I have that urge to progress. But immediately, if I'm on my surface, my ego will get into that self-preservation mode, which is like the very ignorant way of living, that, oh, I want to protect myself from the world. So from the ego lens, or from the surface lens, when you look, you get into that preservation. But when you are more connected, when you have that sense of deeper identity, you go into the protection mode. So the outside, it might look the same, but you know that the divine is protecting you. So yes, you will not engage with the world. You will not do all those things as an act of ignorance. But why are you not doing it? Because you know there's a divine protection which is guiding you, which will tell you what to do, what not to do. You just have to be more silent. And that is why we say that silence is very important. That because in silence, you can just hear, you can just cut out all the noise which is on the surface and just really listen. So when in silence, you really listen, you feel protected by the divine. But if there's a lot of noise, in that noise, you want to just preserve yourself. You just want that identity to be protected. So On the outside, it might, you not be able to discern, though, is it protection, is it preservation? But more and more, when your inner discernment is active, you will be able to know that, okay, am I getting into that preservation mode, that, oh, there's nothing in the world, I'm good for nothing, world has nothing to offer me, what can I do? There are so many people, what will be my contribution? Or are you getting into that, like the sense of protection from the divine, and like whatever little I do, I can do. And also then you realize that your individuality then becomes more and more capable to offer to the collective. Because when we're looking for purification, and especially from the lens of integral yoga, we know it's a collective yoga. It's not that I'm sitting in a corner and just working on myself. But I know if I'm really deeply connected and I'm working on one impurity, I know I'm also working for the collective. I know that the more my individuality will be purified, the better instrument will be offered to the collective. So whatever work I do, even the word work, it's a very narrow sense of work. Now, any interaction is work because that's a contribution you're making to the world. So every interaction you make with the world in any capacity, you are refining and contributing to the collective because you're refining your own self. So that combination becomes a great motivator to interact with the world and to bring the divinity, to express the divinity in the world. So that is how the purification just doesn't remain as an individual journey of going in, making myself better, making my connect with the divine, but also bringing that connection and offering that connection to the world. So purification as a result also leads to upliftment of the collective. So it is not anymore restricted to my own journey. And in that journey, what is again very important is that more and more I interact with the world from that lens, from that poise, I also improve my vocabulary, the kind of words I choose and the meaning behind those words. So like, for example, right now I gave you the example of preservation or protection. These are just normal words. But what is the intention I carry behind those words? That is the intention I carry in my conversation. So if you look around, everybody is just talking. You go to a public place, you open a news channel, you do anything, you go on social media, everybody is just sharing, talking. But what is the intention behind? Is your, like, I can say that, is your language or are your words transparent enough to carry the divinity and express it and not be muddied by the surface noise? Do we have that capacity? Are we ready to build that capacity? That everything that comes out of me is an offering. It is not my own notion of proving myself or asserting myself or wanting to be seen, wanting to be known, but a pure offering, what is required at that point of time in the world. And once we have that notion, purification will just be a continuous process. Then it will be not that, okay, in the morning, I'll just sit for 1 hour and meditate and just purify my thoughts. Yes, that can be part of my routine. It can be very, very helpful for me to run my day. But then I'll also carry that sense of purity, and automatically I will see that there's an inward silence which I will feel and experience, and there will be no urge to speak much. Because usually you have seen, no, that though we talk about that silence is very important, you put two people in a room and ask them to be silent, they will not be experiencing silence. They'll be thinking that what the other person is thinking about them. Because they don't have that purity enough in their thoughts, they'll be like, this person must be thinking, what am I thinking? Is this person thinking right about me? And usually all those negative, wrong, or whatever things. So there's a whole story going on. And even forget the two people, even when you sit in silence, when we say that, oh, sit in silence, meditate, basically we are trying to offer that whatever is happening, which is, say, unprocessed data, like we say, no, before sleeping, meditate, sit, observe yourself, all of those things. What is it essentially? It is an everyday purification process. That when I'm sitting, all of those things throughout the day, which were not processed or semi-cooked or something like that, they come on the surface. You see them and you see that, okay, this is required, this is not required. So it's a very conscious way of closing your day. And then saying that, okay, this is not required. So you sleep. Because we know that how Mother has spoken about sleep can be a very potent space for yoga. So I don't want to carry the unconscious experiences which I've had during the day to also then just experience an unconscious sleep. So what are my methods of purifying my system, and very, very practical methods of purifying my system? So I'm not being very, very ambitious and, oh, I just want to purify my entire being and just offer it to the divine. Yes, that is the aspiration I carry in my heart. But how do I bring it to everyday basis? How do I do it? And what is the consistency which I maintain in the process of purification? So what brings change is the consistency, because usually we have that notion of habits, no, that if something comes in our habit, we are very, very disciplined. But yes, that is partially true, because in no time habits become very mechanical. So the moment you take away a conscious aspect from any action, it's just operating in ignorance, be it habit, be it something new, it doesn't matter. So till the time I'm doing something with total presence, so I'm wholly present in whatever little, even if I'm say lifting this pencil, am I being very, very present? So being present helps in continuous purification. So then it is not like how we do deep cleaning once in a while. No, like I'm just dumping these things, one day I will just clean. So usually that is the same we apply to our own nature also, that if there's something wrong, we're like, no, this is not the time to express, let's park it. But that parking, we don't even realize when it becomes full. So it's also very important to understand that, am I parking or am I processing? And it may also happen simultaneously. I may also park something right now because I don't feel ready to process it, which is also absolutely fine. But am I parking in ignorance because I feel that, oh, this is not something which needs to be processed, or how I can associate myself? Or I'm parking something in full awareness that right now I don't think I feel capable enough to deal with it, but I'm very aware. I will come back to it when I feel more equipped. So on a regular basis, am I just like wanting that my surface should be clean and I should look very presentable and ready for the world? And behind, I'm like, yeah, this emotion I'll deal with later, or this relationship, or this I'll deal later. This thought I'll deal later. So I'm just keeping parking. And that is, we don't even realize how we face and we feel that burden. And suddenly we feel that I don't know why I feel so burdened. Because at one level, all of us have that understanding of that there's a mind-body relationship, mind affects, emotions affect, body impacts. But still our mind always for the first spot seeks tangibility, seeks form. It has an understanding of essence, but experience of essence is beyond the mind. So till the time I don't have that touch of that essence of purity, I'll be only thinking about the notion of how purity is important. Until the time I'm only seeking through the mind, I will not be comfortable with impurity. But the moment I make an inner connect, I go beyond the mind, I will see impurity as a potentiality to progress. And the moment that attitude changes, it will be very easy for me to embrace the world. Then I will no more be very individually focused, me, myself, my life, my people, my person. Then suddenly I will expand and I will see that it is a collective process of evolution. So from that notion to that experience, that connect is very, very important. And it's that connect through which we purify. So all our mental efforts that, yes, this needs to be done, that needs to be done, are part of the story. But those are a very tiny part of the story. Because we all realize that more and more we offer, we might start offering through the mind. So it might be a very mental offering. But once we open. And that is when everything changes, like how I was talking about the vocabulary changes, the experience changes. We know that now we are not talking about silence, but we are experiencing silence. We're not only talking about peace, but I'm experiencing peace. So we can check that the more the urge to express purifies, the more we align and we express more. So that is the paradox. So when we feel that everything is being connected, we are feeling more and more relaxed, we are feeling more and more silence. In silence, because we receive more, we express more. But that expression has a different quality. So before experience also, for example, say I might be speaking for 1 hour. After experience also, I'm speaking for 1 hour. And even the person around me or person who's listening to me will not know, but I will understand the quality. And the more we recognize the quality, more we get fine-tuned and aligned to that quality becomes our window to the world. That becomes our lens to see the world. So then we are not anymore obsessed with the quantity in the world, the forms in the world. We start living in the essence and expressing the essence. So I'll just finish with this thought that one indicator of that your purification process is very, very aligned and it is going on, it will be going on forever, is that there's no fear of expression in the world. You don't feel so much that this has to be done like this, or you have to be wait for perfection. You will just express from that space because that purity will project itself in the collective. So if that indicator we keep with ourselves on a regular basis, that can act as like really, really a motivator and make us more conscious of the game we play with our own self on the surface, forget the game we play with other people. And the more we become conscious of the game we play with our own selves, we'll inwardly start seeing all those unfoldings and kind of bringing them together. So the instruments will no more be like this. The instruments will be like this. They will be like one and help you aid your journey, purify more and more. So I think that is the thought to keep, that make friends with time in the process of purification and nurture the instruments and work towards their harmony and not one asserting over the other. If these 2-3 things we keep in mind, the process of purification will be an enjoyable process and all of us will work on that together. I think that is where maybe we can pause and see if you have any reflections or anything what you have been doing in your journey so far you want to bring in. So yeah, I would like to pause. You can take over. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Aditi. So does anyone have any points or would share anything at this particular stage of the proceedings? Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Yeah, hi, namaste,
Oh,
Aditi.
Vijay.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I mean, what you said makes a lot of sense in the sense that, you know, all of us have that, what you call the strength and weakness. But instead of looking at the strength and seeing that, oh, I can, you know, I'm more compassionate, I'm more kind, we feel that, no, the world doesn't look at, you know, these things. The world looks at, you know, when we, you know, talk about a person, we say that, oh, you know, he is very, you know, short tempered, or we, you know, we say that, you know, he gets angry very fast. We think, you know, we see the negative side of the people also. Similarly, when we look at ourselves, reflect on our, you know, own, the strength and weakness, we are more aligned to focus on the weakness. But the journey, like you said, you know, can we have that patience and continue the time, you know, give that time for the purification to happen? And, you know, I think most of us don't have that patience to continue the journey. But like you said, once you're in that journey, you know, like, it is a beautiful journey. So, like, you know, yes, you try and ignore that weakness and use that strength to make that progress. And that is what I've, you know, that was my first, actually, the first lesson in my journey, saying that, you know, look at the strength, not your weakness. But yes, it has been a long journey for me. But yes, you know, I feel good that I've stuck to it, and, you know, I'm in the process and sharing my, what to say, my experience with my other students and colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, if somebody, just before somebody asked something, I just had one more thing when I was listening to you. See, one thing which comes in the way of our purification is our conditioning, no? Because we, all of us have been taught to live on the surface. Like, if I ask you, when did we get impure? Like, all of us say that, oh, babies are so pure, or the little child is so pure. But by the time we grow up, we are just dealing with and grappling with all these impurities. Because it is a condition that, oh, you don't talk about qualities, because talking about qualities is very egoistic. yes, if you talk about qualities from your ego, it is egoistic. But if you're talking about qualities from inner space, it is an expression. So this discernment, if it comes in you, then only you can express it in the world. So it is, all of us deal with it. Like all of us sitting here is also that it's okay to talk about what I lack, but it's not okay to talk about what I have, because like, oh, this person thinks so much. So that kind of narrative we get into. So we just need to redefine that by working on ourselves and hopefully offer that to the world more and more. So maybe as an exercise, when we are just done and we have time, everybody can write just one quality they feel they truly have in the chat box and feel okay about it. So that is also a very interesting exercise. If you're interested, you can use the chat box and do it. Yes. Any more questions? Yeah. Yes, Alice.
Hello. I have a question about my journey. I used to have a very full parking lot, lots of things parked at the back of my mind. And after many years, decades, the parking lot is pretty empty. Sometimes if something gets stuck there, I'm much more capable of dispensing with it. But as a result of that, I now have so much more time. I feel like I quit a full-time job and now I have all this time that I used to spend up here in my parking lot. It just doesn't even matter anymore. I can let it go, release it, but I have so much time. So I realize that now, and I liked your comment about focusing on being, not doing, because I think this is now a new, deeper layer of impurity that I wish to consider, my attachment to doing instead of just being. And how do I, is there a way you can suggest that I can cross that bridge now?
I think the first thing that came to me was earlier we were talking about patience and how we align with time. So I think that is there, your answer is. And also secondly, the kind of exploration you're making, it's a very good space that the more and more we experience in silence, the more and more we are able to express in freedom. So the relationship in our own self between silence and freedom, that is what is taking us more and more closer to our journey of like whatever exploration we are making. So when you're saying that you have a lot of time and what do, it is a very good exercise to see that our identity doesn't come from our action, it comes from our experience. And the moment I make that shift, that my identity is in my existence, like I used to say it in a fun way that I exist, that's enough, that's my identity. Now what I add to it is a second step. But a lot of us have issues with not having something is because our identity comes from action. So in this space which you're offering to yourself at the moment, you can make that journey from fear to faith, which is from basically silence to freedom. And you can see that your identity is inside of you. And now if you don't have any parking lot, can you create more actively whatever you want to so that nothing goes in the parking lot? So like how we say live in the present moment, it's acting fresh and fearless. And that is a journey in itself. So that can be the way towards the divine. All of us are doing that.
Thank you.
Basically choose your vehicle on which you want to explore this freedom. So yeah, thank you. I'm still waiting for qualities in the chat box. While people are listening, they can, because they know their qualities, they can immediately write it. While we take more comments and questions.
Aditi, there's a question here in the chat.
Yeah.
From Sasvati. Kindly tell again, please, about indicator. I missed about it to understand properly. Indicator.
We can take it as a test that other people who were listening attentively, that can they tell what are the indicators. So we'll know that we all were attempting to purify our hearing capacity. Anybody would like to volunteer what the indicators were? Otherwise, James, it will come to you. You just make sure that anybody Okay, I think everybody's busy focusing on their qualities. So essentially the indicators I was talking about is just how your parts of the being interact. If you become more and more mindful of that, you will know that what is your entry point and how things work for you. So aligning more and more with time, and you see that your urge to express is not so much out there. You can watch that urge for expression, and you can see that when you're expressing in the world, all the parts of the being are working in harmony. So that becomes a process of purification. So that is the indicator how essentially how your instruments work together. So are they divided or they are connected to the source and expressing in harmony? So to begin with, that was the base I was talking about. And I see qualities coming in the chat box. So that's nice. Yes. Anyone would like to share anything about their purification journey? It necessarily not be a question, but anything you took, and yeah, otherwise I'll add.
Yeah, can I?
Sure.
Yeah, see, yes, see, it is a long journey. And, I stay in a family where I have two people who are perfectionists. Okay, so there is a lot of time when, there is a clash. Small things, they say, oh, it has to be like this. It can't be like this. I said, Ari, each person is different. So let me be the way I am. Right. So, that is where I find that there is a lot of clash. So, but we have to live together, right? I can't say that, oh, because you're perfectionist, I can't be living with, I have to live separately. No, I can't do that. So that is a process which, it's an everyday, there is a slight, sometimes it is an irritation for me saying that, I've done this, I've done it the way I think it should be done, but they feel, no, it is not the perfect way. So, that is where still I'm in a path where, I still need to decide how do I react or do I just maintain my silence? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that is very practical example, no? Like even when I was talking about the indicators, that situations become that space to know what my indicator is. So if, for example, for me, it is like, oh, I want to talk and solve, or somebody wants to just solve in silence. Or if I want to say that, okay, this situation cannot be solved with the other person, I have to work on myself. Then I see that, okay, what kind of person I am is mentally understanding and purifying things works better for me, or vitally purifying my feelings work better for me, or essentially I need to do both. But what comes naturally to me, I take that as my point, and then I go to other paths. So those are basically places through which, because like how you're saying, no, that we are family members, we have to live together. That is the same situation within us. No, all of the parts of the being live inside of us. I can't say, oh, my mind can live somewhere else, my vital will live somewhere else. So it's like we also have to live together. So better live in harmony. So my mind needs to know my vital. So the thing is that the way, like I was talking about conditioning earlier, is that because we are essentially mental beings, we always live in that sense of division. We always live in that either or. And we know that even the moment we begin the aspect of our journey on integral yoga, we know that we have to synthesize everything. We know that we have to move from either or to and. So if I'm moving from either or to and, I have to do that at all levels. So my mind needs to understand my vital, to accept it, to see it in a deeper light. My mind and vital both have to understand that my physical has a certain capacity. It can work on its capacity. So like how in a family, each other, we understand that, oh, this is the person's strength, this is the person's weakness, and we work as a unit. The same logic applies to our parts of the being. But because we are not aware so much, anything which we find, for example, if I think that, oh, I'm a person who speaks well, I want that to be my identity. Oh, who is Aditi? Oh, she's a speaker. Or if somebody who's vital is very, very active, or they are very good musician or very good artist, oh, who are you? Oh, I'm an artist. All like, though we carry that philosophical question of who am I inside of us, what we are concerned and occupied with is, what will I tell if somebody asks me, who am I? So that is the immediate contradiction which needs resolution. That all of us have the deep faith indication of going within that sense of purity, because that's our home. Silence is our home. Purity is our home. That is the most comfortable we feel. But because we want that, okay, if somebody asks me, or what will I say in the world, we get into all these notions. So just basically just cut the clutter kind of a thing. Because from clutter, there is always confusion. Consciousness brings clarity. So the more and more I open myself to consciousness, the more and more I'm clear, and then I know this works, this doesn't work. So the kind of rejection which we talk about in the yoga, rejection becomes a natural process and not a forced way to be something else, because it aligns with your journey. End of the day, purification is nothing but aligning to who you are. So the more you align to who you are, purification is a byproduct. So anything which is happening on the outside is always a byproduct of what process is going inside. So the awareness to inside helps us accept the outside. So essentially, you don't have to do so much on the outside. It's a mental notion that I have to create, I have to do that. But experientially inside, if I'm living, outer action will happen, because that's the nature. If we are really genuinely, like so many people said, faith, if we genuinely have that faith, we know that if we are an appropriate instrument, divine will work through me. Divine will give me work and I will do something in the world. It's just that my mental notion of work might not fit into the notion of divine work. So that is my problem. That is not divine's problem. So if I have that faith, then I also have to wait and see how it works. It's like I have faith, but I have the surface need also. Doesn't work like that. So again, I'm bringing the concept of alignment. So that is how things work. Yeah. Yeah, I think I've spoken enough. I've started to feel that impurity is rising, and I was like, no more mental cognition happening, unnecessary conversation. It's good to maybe be silent, and if nobody has any comments to make, maybe we can have I can just show you a passage. We can just silently read, reflect, and close, if that is okay with you, James.
Yeah, that's fine. Sure,
Or-
absolutely. If that's
Yeah.
okay with everyone else.
Yeah, because speech beyond a point is impure. And that is the
Yeah.
sense I get.
Yeah, I
But,
understand. Okay.
but
let's
if
do
everybody
that.
feels a sense of completion, if somebody has to add something, then they can please go ahead. Okay, then. Yeah, I think after all that we can do, I think it's a good passage to read on our own and reflect. And if you have something to share, you can write in the chat box, or we can just remain silent.
Beautiful.
All right, maybe I can just stop sharing and James, you can close. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. It's a really inspiring session. Just wanted to say that if you were very much taken with this particular presentation, inspired by this particular presentation, Aditi is conducting an intensive and immersive program, Insights into Integral Yoga Psychology, which is starting on July the 3rd. And it's in 2 tranches of 5 days. So I believe it's the 3rd to the 7th and the 17th to the 21st. Yes. So I'd certainly recommend if this particular session resonated with you, you take this up, because it will be a very inspiring workshop, not just for students, but also teachers as well. Whatever stage of the journey you're at, it will be of constructive use for you. So, thank you everyone for participating in this session. Again, and tomorrow is the last session with Dr. Sumitra Basu. And see you again tomorrow. All the best, everyone. Thank you, Aditi. Wonderful session.
Thank you. Thank you so much.